Hi everybody, it's Laura from Green Tree, and today we're talking about rice. You've probably had rice, and if you haven't had rice, I'm sure that you have seen it. Rice is one of the most eaten, most popular grains in the world. It's a huge food staple, and there's no way we can touch the whole topic today, but I'm going to give you a rundown on some of the basics. To start with, rice. Most people tend to think about white rice when they think about rice. Is a grass that is native to Africa and Asia. The wild rice that we have here in the U.S. is actually a different plant. Even though we tend to treat it similarly in cooking, it's not the same thing. Probably one of the biggest things that people are confused about is the difference between white rice and brown rice. So we've got white rice and brown rice here. Brown rice has something on the outside. A lot of us would think of it as the husk or the hull, but it's called the chaff. So you can kind of see it on the picture here. It has this little layer on the outside, and it also still has the germ attached. So if you think of something like pearled barley, for example, that has had that little bit shaved off so it cooks faster, that's really the difference between brown rice and white rice. It's had that outer layer stripped off so that it will cook faster, and it does have less fiber, so for some people that's easier to digest. Others prefer the more fiber in the brown rice because that chaff, that hull, makes it take a little longer to work through your system and a little longer for the sugar to hit your blood. So there's also another difference between white rice and brown rice. White rice tends to be stickier than brown rice. Long grain rice tends to be less sticky than short grain or medium grain rice. So if you want a rice that's going to stay together, you're going to want to choose a white rice and little short grain rices like sushi rice or arborio, because they will have more of that clumping ability than the long grain rices. If you want a rice that you can eat with chopsticks, go for a white rice or a short grain rice. If you want a rice that's going to be nice and crumbly, that's going to be served as a side dish, then probably go for a long grain rice. So rice also comes in a lot of other colors. I'm just going to show you one here that we happen to have. This is green rice. You can kind of see it's a pale sort of jade color. Rice also comes in purple and red and a wide variation of shades of brown. You can get black rice. So experiment with them and try a few different ones. I've tried quite a few flavors of rice myself. Sorry everybody, it's a little loud in the store today. I've tried quite a few different kinds myself. I've found that there are some differences in flavor and texture, but you can, for the most part, substitute one type of rice for the other, so long as you're choosing sticky or not sticky, depending on the application. Oh, there we go, it got a little quieter. When you are cooking rice, this is something that a lot of people have a problem with, is cooking rice. You can end up with it burning and sticking to the bottom of the pot. That's usually because of one of two things. Either you didn't follow the directions to put enough water in, you set the temperature too high, or I guess there's a third thing, which would be you didn't set a timer. So my three biggest pieces of advice for cooking rice are follow the directions to the letter in terms of the proportion of water to rice, because it does vary from one type to another, and as well as the cooking. Make sure that the temperature that you cook it at is what it says in the directions. And then finally, set a timer every time. If you're using a rice cooker or a slow cooker, it's going to have a timer function built in. But if you're making it on the stovetop, don't think you're going to remember. Set a timer every single time. Now that said, our grocery buyer did want me to offer a tip. If you're, kind of making your classic white rice, something like this, and you find that you left it on the stove a little too long and it started to dry out, you can just add some water back in and cook it a little longer, and you will end up with the regular soft, fluffy rice that you were looking for. If it's actually burnt to the bottom though, you're going to want to go ahead and scoop out the rice that is not attached to that bottom layer. And if it's only burnt a little, you can go ahead and add some water to that rice and reuse it. If it's really burnt, that flavor will go through the whole thing. But again, set a timer and you should be okay. If you want your rice to be creamy like arborio, then you're actually going to want to saute your rice a little bit, or if you're making any kind of risotto, but arborio is the typical rice for that. You're going to want to saute or fry your rice briefly in oil before you start adding liquid, and that will make it creamy but not sticky. So those are some basic rice cooking tips. Rice is also really versatile. You can make it as a dinner, a breakfast, a dessert. And I'm going to show you today, my sample is rice pudding. It might be a little hard to tell here, but I actually went ahead and added slivered almonds and wild blueberries, dried blueberries to this. It has a really nice smell because it's got cardamom and cinnamon and ginger in it. But all you really need to make rice pudding is 3 basic ingredients. You need rice, you need milk, and you need sugar. I used coconut milk for this, but you could use regular dairy milk or any other non-dairy milk. I probably wouldn't suggest doubling down and using rice milk, but you could if you wanted to. It's just not going to give you as creamy of a texture. So basically, to make rice pudding, you take either fresh rice, or if you have leftover rice, this is a great use for leftover rice, and you cook it with milk until it's the consistency that you want. If you're starting from dry rice, you want a similar proportion to the amount of liquid that you would use if you were cooking it in water, plus a little extra to keep it creamy. If you are starting with cooked rice, I would say you want about a 4-to-1 ratio, about 4 cups or 4 parts of cooked rice to 3 parts of milk. And then just add sugar and spices to taste. You can keep it plain, you could add a little splash of vanilla, or you could do like I did and add spices and nuts and fruit. There's really no limit to it. I like to add chocolate. So that's one thing you can do with rice is desserts. You can also do a lot of things with these quick packets. This is kind of my go-to backup plan when I don't have time to make dinner. You can serve it with a simmer sauce or an Indian dinner that's also really quick like this. These are only 90 seconds to cook. You can take and put in a frying pan or a saute pan with some scrambled eggs, throw in a can of black beans, and boom, you've got breakfast burrito filling. Rice works well in casseroles. You can use it in virtually anything you could do with pasta. You can put sauces on top, you can mix in vegetables and meats. Really, the sky's the limit. If anybody has any favorite rice dishes that they want to share, go ahead and put that in the comments, and I will be posting the recipe for this rice pudding later today. I guess that's all I've got for rice. If you guys have any questions, like I said, go ahead and post them. If you want to try this, come on down. I'll be sampling it till about 6. I hope you're having a lovely Tuesday. Bye, guys.